Life often begins in the most ordinary of places, in neighborhoods where the world seems small and the possibilities even smaller. Far from the glamour and the roar of a stadium crowd, dreams are quietly born in silence and solitude. For Barry Tomes, that place was a council estate in Northfield, Birmingham, a world of brick houses, modest dreams, and the steady rhythm of everyday life. Growing up in post-war Britain meant practicality, not fantasy. People valued hard work, and imagination was often a luxury. You worked hard and didn't expect to meet legends. Life was about getting by, not chasing the impossible. But ambition is a powerful current, quietly shaping destinies, even when the odds seem insurmountable. Barry was drawn to music, eager to escape and find something more, something that would let him break free from the ordinary. He started at the bottom, learning the ropes, making connections, and proving himself one job at a time, never losing sight of his passion. No famous name, no roadmap, just determination, belief, and a willingness to keep moving forward. The idea of working with the Beach Boys seemed like a distant dream, almost impossible for a boy from Birmingham. They were icons, their music the sound of freedom and youth, echoing across continents and generations. For a young man from Birmingham, they were voices on the radio, faces on album covers, untouchable, almost mythical. But fate had other plans, and sometimes the world opens up in ways you never expect. This is the story of how a boy from a council estate found himself at the heart of one of music's greatest operations, travelling far beyond the streets he once called home. Through Barry's eyes, we see not just the rock and roll fantasy, but the human story behind the legend, the friendships, the struggles and the triumphs. Sometimes the most extraordinary journeys begin on the most ordinary of streets, reminding us that greatness can come from anywhere. Opportunity rarely arrives with fanfare. More often, it slips quietly into your life, disguised as an ordinary moment, waiting for you to recognize its potential. For Barry Tomes, it came as a phone call at age 25, one that would change the course of his life forever. By then, he'd built a reputation for reliability and resourcefulness in the chaotic world of tour management, earning the trust of musicians and crews alike. The Beach Boys needed a tour manager, someone to handle the pressure, solve problems, and keep the show on the road, no matter what challenges arose. At 25, it was a monumental responsibility. Barry said yes, stepping into a world he'd only dreamed about. Overnight, he was on the inside, orchestrating the logistics of a world-famous band, making sure every detail was perfect. He managed everything: travel, accommodation, stage setups, security, juggling countless moving parts with calm determination. The council estate faded into memory, replaced by airport terminals, backstage passes, and the constant hum of anticipation before each show. It was a surreal transformation, a real-life story of ambition meeting opportunity, and of a young man reinventing himself on the world stage. Barry learned to navigate personalities, understand the band's dynamics, and appreciate the scale of their operation, growing more confident with every challenge. He was no longer just a fan. He was a trusted colleague, a problem solver, and a witness to musical history in the making. The boy from Birmingham had found his place in the inner circle of American rock and roll royalty, forging connections that would last a lifetime. The role was more than a job. It was an education, a crash course in leadership, diplomacy, and the art of making the impossible happen. Barry's journey had truly begun, and the road ahead promised adventure, growth, and a front-row seat to history. The life of a tour manager is a whirlwind of schedules and constant motion, but sometimes a moment cuts through the noise. For Barry, that moment came under the sun in South Africa, as the Beach Boys played to an ecstatic crowd. For the first time, he stopped being a manager and simply listened. Overcome with emotion, he thought of his roots and the improbability of his journey. The distance he'd travelled was more than miles. It was a leap across social divides and personal limits. The music was the catalyst: optimism, youthful dreams, endless possibilities. In that stadium, the music connected people from every background. Barry realised all the hard work was worth it. He was part of something special. From that day, the job was never just about logistics, it was about protecting the magic. That epiphany became a cornerstone of his experience. To understand Barry's journey, you must understand the Beach Boys. Formed in 1961 in Hawthorne, California, they were a family band brothers Brian, Dennis, and Carlwilson, cousin Mikelove, and friend Aljardine. They sang about surfing, cars, and the California dream, blending rock energy with intricate harmonies. Their rise was meteoric. Hits like Surf in USA and Help Me, Rhonda made them America's band. Their music was an escape, a 3-minute vacation to a sun-drenched paradise. The Beach Boys didn't just sing about the dream, they exported it worldwide. They sold over 100 million records, pioneering surf rock and raising the bar for pop music. Brian Wilson's complex arrangements set a new standard for what a band could achieve. Their journey mirrored their audiences, evolving from youthful anthems to deeper, more introspective works. The Beach Boys became the soundtrack to a generation's life. At the heart of the Beach Boys' sound was Brian Wilson, the co-founder, songwriter, producer, and visionary whose creative force shaped the band's identity. From the very beginning, Brian's musical instincts set him apart, and his passion for innovation would soon transform the world of pop music. While the band projected a carefree, sun-soaked image to the world, Brian was the introspective artist working quietly behind the scenes. He often preferred solitude, finding inspiration in moments of reflection rather than the spotlight. His genius was evident early. He could hear complex harmonies in his head and bring them to life in the studio, arranging intricate vocal parts that became the band's signature. Brian's ability to translate emotion into music was nothing short of remarkable. He treated the studio as an instrument in itself, experimenting with sounds, layering tracks, and pushing recording technology to its limits. Brian was always searching for new ways to express himself musically. This relentless innovation led to masterpieces like Goodvibrations and the groundbreaking album Petsounds, both of which showcased his unique vision and set new standards for pop music production. Petsounds moved far beyond surf anthems, offering lush orchestration, emotional depth, and a vulnerability rarely heard in pop at the time. The album's soundscapes were rich and evocative, drawing listeners into Brian's world. The album inspired the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper and redefined what pop could be, sparking a creative revolution that rippled through the entire music industry. Despite his extraordinary talent, Brian was a complex, often troubled figure, shy, sensitive, and far more comfortable in the studio than on stage. His struggles with anxiety and self-doubt were as much a part of his story as his musical triumphs. Barry Tomes, who saw him up close, confirmed the label of genius was absolutely true, describing Brian as a rare artist whose brilliance was matched only by his humility. Brian's extraordinary gifts and his struggles became the foundation of the Beach Boys' legacy, leaving an indelible mark on music history and inspiring generations of artists to come. Genius often comes with struggle, and Brian Wilson's journey was no exception. Deaf in one ear since childhood, he overcame adversity to master sound. The pressures of fame and creative ambition took a toll, leading to mental health struggles and withdrawal. Diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, Brian battled substance abuse and spent years as a recluse. But his love for music was a lifeline. With support from his wife, Melinda, he slowly returned to health and creativity in the 1990s. He began performing again, released solo albums, and reclaimed his legacy. In 2004, he finally completed and released Smile, the legendary Lost album. Brian even reunited with the Beach Boys for their 50th anniversary tour. His story is one of resilience, the creative spirit enduring against all odds. On June 11, 2025, the music world fell silent. Brian Wilson passed away at 82. The outpouring of love and respect was immediate and global. Aljardine called him a humble musical giant. Mikelove said Brian's gifts changed music forever. Paul McCartney called him a musical genius. Elton John, a revolutionary. Bob Dylan and Sean Lennon praised his unique talent and influence. These tributes weren't just platitudes. They were acknowledgements from peers and disciples. Brian Wilson wasn't just a songwriter, he was a foundational figure in modern music. The world lost more than a pop star, it lost a composer whose work will endure for centuries. For Barry Tomes, who worked with the Beach Boys for 45 years, Brian's death was deeply personal. He saw the man behind the myth, the complexities, the struggles, and the brilliance. Barry affirmed the label of genius was absolutely true. Brian's music transcended eras, it was timeless. He was a complex character, but always found his way back to music. That resilience inspired Barry most. Music was Brian's sanctuary and therapy. From Northfield to the world stage, Barry witnessed greatness up close. His tribute is not just that of a colleague, but a witness to the dedication and cost of creativity. Behind every legendary song is a human being, and in Brian's case, a spirit that could never be extinguished. Brian Wilson may be gone, but his music remains, woven into the fabric of our culture. His songs are timeless, inspiring new generations and offering comfort to millions. For Barry Tomes, Brian's legacy is intertwined with his own, a story of hope and the power of music to transform lives. Brian's music pulled Barry from ordinary to extraordinary, proving dreams can come true. The story of Brian Wilson is one of triumph over adversity, vulnerability as strength, and pop as high art. His music is a gift that keeps giving, the sound of sun, optimism, and perfect harmony. Thanks to Brian Wilson, the summer never truly ends. His spirit lives on in every note.